All right, we're back. Tastycrypto Show. I'm Ryan Grace, and with me today, of course, Dan Cecilia. Dan, I hear you're feeling good, my friend.
I am feeling good. I'm feeling really good. Second time on the network today, as our viewers have pointed out. Emmett in the chat. Shout out Emmett. 2 times. You'll be seeing a lot more of me, apparently. I just renewed my contract, so they're going to put me on, and we're going to be doing 3 hours of crypto content each day. So
very nice.
Newsflash. Markets, well, ETH's up.
Yeah.
Markets are up.
Good weekend.
Great weekend.
Trade desk is buzzing.
Yeah.
Markets are popping here. The bags are pumping. You were on Liz and Jenny earlier today. I'll have to go back and review the footage. I heard you did a nice job.
I hope so. I was told I sounded nervous in the chat, but then I was like, that's probably just how I sound. So maybe
generally nervous.
Yeah, generally nervous. I was trying to I figured I'd cover the crypto treasury companies on that show because I figured that was like, they're options traders or whatever. And, there's more options there. It's easier to understand. And then they wanted me to talk about like perps markets and
go everywhere,
staking. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll have to be more prepared for crypto specific things for the next time I come on.
Dan goes everywhere, and if you want to find him, well, where can they find you on X? What's your handle over there?
My handle on X is @TruthDanC. I just dropped it in the chat there, and I'll link it.
Yeah, give him a follow, ladies and gentlemen.
If you guys want to talk to me, that would be where I would answer.
Direct line. That's better than having your phone number.
Way better.
Yeah.
Way better. There's I'm on there about 4 hours a day. That's kind of my job. Is I just sit on Twitter. Don't tell anyone that though.
Secret safe with me, my friend.
All right, so where are we going here? What are we looking at? Dan,
I think we got to talk Ethereum. We got to talk markets here. But before we do, of course, we got to shout out everybody in the chat. If you're not in the chat, well, I don't know what you're doing. You can stream this live on tastylive.com. You can stream this live on YouTube as well. And that's where you can go over there and pop out that chat, type some crazy shit into the chat if you want to, or a question, or once in a while, if you have a compliment even, a comment, some criticism, we'll take it all. But join us here in the chat on YouTube if you'd like. Let's talk markets though, Dan. We've got a pretty bullish setup here. We've had a pretty bullish setup. I think you go back a week or two, the beginning of the month at least, you had the non-farm payrolls, you had some risk-off headlines related to tariffs, a little bit of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, I suppose, in the market. And people start kind of talking about the idea that you might have some sort of recession on the horizon, things are slowing down. And we're really seeing the exact opposite of that here today. Now, we have pulled back off of the highs, but Bitcoin kind of flirting with, I suppose, is the technical term, with an all-time high. ETH as well. ETH trading a lot stronger, in my opinion, than Bitcoin. 43 and change earlier here today. Where do you want to start, though? You want to look at kind of maybe what's driving ETH, and then we'll go around the horn and look at the rest of the market?
Yeah, I think we're finally seeing ETH wake up. A lot of momentum there. A lot of rotation, so I think we should dig into that and kind of just take a look and see what's going on.
Excellent. Well, first things first then, let's jump over to our slides. We're going to do a little bit of a deep dive on Ethereum. I guess just to start with, the one thing I do want to point out is just the bullish price momentum we've got here. A bit of an increase in implied volatility as well, a little bit for Bitcoin, more so for ETH. 4240 at the time that we put this together. ETH's up 70% in the last 3 months and 21% of the week, which is outperforming the majority of what we look at. Chainlink's up 31% on the week. And yeah, it's been about it for some of the larger movers. I mean, you got Comp there at 15%. You got Polygon at 18%. But across the board, a nice bounce here to start the week versus what we saw last week, where you had a little bit of some profit taking, a little bit of a pullback. But let's talk about ETH, because it wasn't that long ago, and even just a couple of weeks ago, you could have bought this thing at like, I want to say 33. Is that right? 35? I mean, we dumped for a second. Let me
bring up
back to my slides here.
Yeah, bring up the chart too. I mean, it was just in.
Yeah, 30. I got a 34 and change here. As you can see on the screen, that's just a week ago or so. And now you're at 43, so you're up almost $1,000 from where you were. The narrative in this for a little while was that ETH was dead. Crazy it's just crazy to look back and see what people were tweeting, talking about, and the narrative in crypto, like in most markets, it shifts quite frequently and quite violently, I suppose, in the opposite direction at times, just based on what price is doing. But here we are, the sleeping giant awakens. I wrote a piece a while ago about ETH as if it were a sleeping giant at that point in time where this had been somewhat left for dead, and we're on the other end of that spectrum right now. Let's talk through some of this. What are you seeing in the market that is behind this monster move back up near all-time highs?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think the main thing that I'm seeing is the emergence of these crypto treasury companies. We obviously have very bullish ETH ETF flows. I think we talked about this on a couple other couple previous shows where the ETH ETF came out around the same time as IBIT, and nobody was buying it. It took, I mean, throughout 2024, everyone was buying the IBIT ETF. The ETH ETF was kind of left for dead. There was no flows, and then eventually 2025 hit, and we've seen kind of record flows over the last month in July. So I think that's a pretty big indication of demand for ETH. Yeah.
Just jump to the slides really quickly here, and let's take a look at that, because you are really now starting to see institutions pick this up and run with it.
Yeah.
Here is an example of exactly what you're talking about. Here's ETH A. This is assets under management for the BlackRock Ethereum ETF. And there's others that are out there that you can trade. This has options on it as well, as others do. But we'll use this as an example of just what's happened here. I mean, it's gone vertical in the last month.
Yeah. Yeah. So July was really that turning point there. You can see, end of May it started trending up, but July is really where it went vertical. So the demand for ETH is huge there. So also we got Tom Lee's Bitminer company, right? We're seeing stuff in the media. People are waking up to ETH as an asset. And then, we'll have to take a look at on-chain flows, and I think you have some stuff there, but activity's up on the chain. People are using it. You can see their crypto asset treasury companies trading volume ETH and BTC. That blue chart there is ETH. So
okay, so you're now starting to see it really pop up. So just to clarify what we're looking at here. These are the treasury companies and
right.
their trading volume. So it's not the companies themselves trading ETH, but you're looking at these crypto treasury companies. You had Bitcoin treasury companies that were spun up first. I think probably MSTR strategy is the first in that space. Now you're seeing this with ETH, and you're seeing this with some other tokens as well. But now these are the trading volumes in those companies that are ETH treasury companies.
Right, right. So I think that's an indication that there's a bid for ETH, right? At least from people are accessing it through these traditional finance vehicles. Yeah, I mean, I think it was all a bullish setup for the rotation into ETH.
So for anybody that's not familiar with the treasury companies, they're raising capital to hold ETH, but correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, I think a few of them are also looking to participate on chain in ways in which they can generate yield. So you almost think about this company as, I don't want to say it's a fund, but it's an investment vehicle that also participates in crypto in order to generate a return. It's not just holding the underlying asset, but in some cases it might be staking the asset. In other cases, maybe it's participating in DeFi, and I might be stretching a little bit here, but when you have crypto on the balance sheet, you could, in theory, use the crypto to generate returns. Now, there's risk associated with that, but is that correct in assuming that they're doing something with the crypto?
Yeah, I think I haven't dug into. I got to do some more research into the ETFs and just see kind of. I was getting this question on the Liz and Jenny show. They were like, "Well, why wouldn't you just buy the ETF as opposed
versus
to spot?
a treasury company,
or just
so
spot?"
I'm talking specifically about the treasury.
Oh, about the treasury
where
company.
I have raised $1 billion to buy ETH. I've bought ETH. Do I just hold it, or do I do something with it? I'm guessing they're doing something with it.
Yeah, I mean, same point. I think there's probably staking it. They're probably doing things in DeFi and collecting, probably collecting that profit. And then I think there's a trade there where they're issuing shares to buy ETH, and it's trading at a premium. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's a good question. I'm not totally sure what the play is there, but I do think it's giving people more access to the asset ETH.
Well, it's certainly driving the price higher. I want to look at a couple of these ETH treasury companies and just kind of compare this to spot, if you will, and maybe walk through what that MNAV is for anybody that's not familiar with how to maybe look at these or analyze these companies to answer that question. Okay, why not just invest in spot? Why not just invest in the ETF? Why invest in, whether it's ETH or if it's Bitcoin, why invest in strategy even?
Yeah, I think the answer to that is it's just easier to get access to it for traditional financial investors. That's the thing I can think of. And then if you look at these companies, SBET, Bitminer, that MNAV, which is multiple of NAV, is showing you whether or not it's undervalued or overvalued based on the amount of crypto holdings, token holdings it has on its balance sheet. So that's an indication of like, okay, are you buying this and paying a premium for it based on, how much ETH it owns compared to spot? So I just think like that's an important note, because that's what people follow is like, are these way overvalued? Are they getting, are they buying up more than what they hold in their, what assets they hold on the balance sheet? Yeah, I mean, I guess, do you have any idea? Like, I don't know what, I guess I don't really know why you would hold these as opposed to.
Well, I think to your point, I mean, it's frictionless, it's accessible. You can make that argument around the ETH ETFs as well. But I think, you're going to see that multiple of net asset value, a little bit of leverage or that premium there as a function of most likely these companies participating in the space, using the ETH to generate additional yield, right? Also using it to some extent on the balance sheet, a little bit of financial engineering.
Yeah.
In order to just acquire more and more ETH. And so, maybe that explains some of it. Probably could trade at a discount at some point too. But right now in a bull market like we're in, maybe not surprised to see that you have a little bit of a premium in some of these things depending on what they're doing. That said, we have a couple questions from the chat that maybe we can hit really quickly as we're talking about Ethereum. I have a question generally around staking, it looks like. I mean, the question being, what is staking? I don't know if you want to take that one. You want me to take it. But, how do you think about staking if you were just to simplify it? Because it's very technical. It's technically complex. But I kind of think of it as just lending money to the Ethereum ecosystem and getting an associated yield in the same way that you might lend money to the U.S. government ecosystem, to use that word, and you are paid a yield for lending money in the underlying currency, which is dollars. In this case, the underlying currency is ETH. Now, there's a function that's performed by the network that is what drives that yield, but that's kind of high level how I think about it. How do you think about staking?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the easiest way to describe it without getting too deep into the weeds on like the complexity of the network and kind of what you're actually doing. It's like earning yield on savings deposits, right? Like you have ETH, you can stake it, they call it, you can deposit it into the network, and the network pays you a reward interest rate, a reward rate for locking up that ETH. So you're earning more ETH on top of your ETH. It's like compounding interest, right? And really what you're doing, just to get kind of a little bit deeper into it, is you're securing the network. You're helping the network validate transactions, and there's an economic kind of function there, right? Why would you stake it if you weren't being paid anything? That's kind of the idea. But the easiest way to think of it is it's like depositing into a savings account. You're earning interest for participating in the network.
Yeah, you generate a yield, and I guess to just take it one step further, you allocate your Ethereum to validators on the network. Validators validate transactions. That's the securing the network concept that Dan's referring to. And for validating transactions, those validators receive rewards. It's how it works. It's similar but different to Bitcoin miners and mining and adding blocks to the chain. Validating transactions, there's a reward for doing so. That reward is paid in ETH. If you've allocated your ETH to these larger pools that then go on to either allocate it to validators or participate in that process, you're going to share in the rewards that are generated, and that's where the yield comes from. Now, if the price of Ethereum also goes up in dollar terms, then when we measure this yield in dollar terms, the percentage annualized return is going to be higher.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, James, you're earning interest, but you still bear the downside risk. Yeah, I mean,
you have the currency risk. ETH.
Yeah. It's you're earning an ETH. There's a currency risk, right? The dollar could go down, just like I think it's like a mix between this stock yield or whatever stock lending and I guess earning in a savings account. I guess that's the best way to think about it.
Yeah, those are kind of analogs, I suppose, but at the same time, it's entirely different.
Yeah.
But that might be the way to think about it. If Ethereum, the network, is a government, you're lending money to it, to this economy in a sense, and you're being paid in the underlying currency, which is ETH.
Yes. So that's one way of looking at it. DeFi, that's where I think of like lending money, borrowing money.
Yeah.
DeFi is basically the same thing you would do with banking, where you go borrow money, you trade on margin, you can make markets. It's all an open source kind of financial network that is powered by ETH. So you can borrow more ETH to go long on some other token. You can lend your ETH out to earn a yield. You can make markets. We've been doing liquidity pools, which we could show you at some point, but there's a whole nother financial system that's built on top of ETH. That's what DeFi refers to.
Yeah, that's the way that I think of it, is really an alternative financial system, right? It stands for decentralized finance. And it's many of the same or similar financial services that we're used to in the traditional sense, but without the traditional intermediaries or the companies, the centralized entities that sit in between and facilitate the transactions. Instead, the transactions and the services are facilitated by smart contracts or by code, and everything is settled on a blockchain. With this technology, you do not need to rely on third parties to facilitate these traditional financial services. I don't know how else to kind of put it, but it's decentralized in that sense. So hopefully that helps out. If anybody has any more questions, please pop them in the chat. But looking at some of the ETH treasury companies, obviously the ability for these entities to raise capital, then go out and buy ETH, has been very supportive of ETH prices here. You at times get short liquidations. You get this kind of FOMO bid that materializes, and you get a little bit of momentum behind the price action, which is certainly what we're seeing here today. Sticking with DeFi, though, Dan, I do want to bounce to this slide here and just show this is total value locked. So when we talk about not so much staking, but talk about locking capital, depositing capital in decentralized finance protocols, Uniswap is a big one, Aave, Compound, many others. This is representative of how much capital is in these different protocols on ETH in aggregate. And you can see that we're not quite at those all-time highs that we reached back in 2021, but we're getting there. I do believe that we'll surpass it at some point. But 92 billion in capital is participating on Ethereum alone, which is the biggest when we think about what's happening in DeFi. And then you have other Ethereum L2s, Base, Arbitrum, a few $1 billion of TVL there. You have TVL or total value locked. You have capital that's locked on Solana and other chains. So in total, your TVL and DeFi across all blockchain networks is much more than 92 billion, but I believe that ETH is the single largest chain that's securing this capital for these services.
Right.
Right. Providing real value. There's real revenue in that sense. You swap a token on Uniswap. you're going to pay a gas fee to the network. You're going to pay a small fee to the protocol, but you're not paying that fee to a single company like let's say a Tastytrade when you trade an option.
Yeah, it's peer to it's almost like peer to peer. You're paying it to other participants in that network.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I think that trend is pretty exciting too. I think we'll greatly surpass the 2022 high for total value locked capital on chain on Ethereum, and we're really only like 6 years into this. Like 2019 is really when DeFi became something common, I guess. Was all kind of being built before then. So I think that trend is pretty positive.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what you want to see. You want to see an increase in participation. You want to see an increase in TVL here. It's not going to go straight up, but the trend is up and to the right. You want to see growth in stablecoin market cap on these chains. That's another sign of pretty robust participation in DeFi, which is also going to be reflected here in the TVL, as we can see. You want to see an increase in transactions, volume, volatility. I think all of these boxes you can check for the most part. And there's for now, a pretty supportive bid in ETH. Institutions have taken notice. I think liquidity on the margin, as we've talked about many times in the show, has been ample and is driving asset prices higher. We can look at really quickly the correlations. Pretty strong positive correlation between Bitcoin and the NASDAQ recently. These don't jump off the page though, but generally speaking, equities are at all-time high. The broader kind of macro backdrop is supportive. You've got crypto at all-time highs, and I think you have a little bit of time left in this cycle, right? There's nothing on the horizon that is signaling we're going to see a slowdown one way or the other. Likely in an environment where you have a little bit of a move higher in growth and inflation in the short term, which is really what you want to see is supportive of assets. I mean, we come out of earnings, pretty decent earnings in terms of EPS growth. So from where I sit, I mean, it looks like an environment in which I still want to buy dips. We've got to be prepared for probably more volatility at some point. When we do look at Bitcoin IV ranks, they're still very low. ETH has picked up a little bit, which is, again, another box I want to check. Around the volume and the price action, is volatility expanding into this move when we know there tends to be somewhat of a positive correlation at times between the underlying implied volatility of ETH or Bitcoin and its price action, which is quite opposite from what we see in equities. And this is what you're seeing. Still a little bit of premium in there when we look at IV for ETH. And you now have an upside to your 1 week, one standard deviation move of almost 46.50. Downside of 38.28.
That's looking good.
It is looking good. It's feeling good. It's looking good. Is there a price at which you would take a little bit off the table? I know you've been in some of these trades for a while. You have a number in mind?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably looking to take a small percentage of my Ethereum holdings off the table, above 5K, probably between 5 and 6K. Just because, it won't go up in a straight line. I'm not gonna completely sideline myself and go out of cash, but I think when these tokens hit all-time highs, you want to take a little bit off.
Yeah,
that's been my rule. I've kind of learned that. It's just a simple kind of rule to follow. Hey, it hits an all-time high, just take a little off. That's kind of where my mind goes. So I think that would be, above 5K for me for ETH. So I think we just have more room to run here. I think we're just kind of getting started with this rotation to ETH, rotation to altcoins. And yeah, I mean, everything seems to be looking good. Obviously there's always going to be down days and chop and this market isn't that big, so things tend to unravel quickly and then bounce back. So it makes it a fun trading asset. But I'm looking forward to seeing it above 5K.
Yeah, I think we get there as well. But to your point, you're going to get some chop. You're going to see wider ranges here as certainly the spot price moves higher or is at a higher level. or value, and you have more volatility that comes into the market, right? So now we're looking at expected moves of $400 versus $250 if we go back a couple of months or so. And, within a one standard deviation in terms of that implied vol on a 1 week basis, you do have a $3,800 downside move that you could see, right? It's not guaranteed. These are just simply, one standard deviation moves, and they're going to change as the spot price and volatility changes. But it does imply 3,800 to call it 4,600, 4,700. So you could see some stops run on longs that kind of got pulled into the market on a $4,000 break there. So if you get back to 3,800, personally, that's where I would look to to buy a little bit more. But I think also, there's nothing wrong with taking a little bit off the table. If you've been in this, especially since we've been talking about it at 1,500, at 2,000, talking about that broader range in here of realized price action being 2,000 to 4,000, well, you're towards the top of that range. I do think that you get the break. A couple other things that I'm focused on really quickly, Dan, before we wrap up. When we look at relative performance, this is absolutely what you want to see, and a couple more of those boxes to check to just try to get an understanding of where are we at this stage. And here's what we're starting to see. That Bitcoin market cap dominance is starting to pick up a little bit of downside momentum. Certainly here on the ETH move, we're going to keep an eye on Solana versus Bitcoin too. Don't sleep on Solana. It feels like it's been dead, kind of stuck at that 170-ish level. But I think this is one that could also catch a bid very quickly at some point. It's probably not a matter of if, but when. ETH BTC, this is trading pretty well. I've got to assume you see some consolidation at some point. But this is what you want to see in terms of ETH BTC price momentum, Bitcoin market cap dominance breaking down a little bit, Solana catching a bid versus Bitcoin. And then if I have to kind of weigh out how do I want to think about Solana or ETH and an allocation there, well, Solana's trading pretty poorly right now against ETH. So I think you stick with what's working there with ETH. I think you will see those big Bitcoin catch-up days too here, but that trend that we've been in for really 3 years of just very poor ETH BTC performance, ETH relative underperformance, significant underperformance versus Bitcoin, you're seeing the other side of that now. And I think you've got some room to run, right? We're at spot 0.358. Can you get to 0.04, 0.05, 500ths of a BTC, you're going to be well above that all-time high.
Yeah.
Prior all-time high, new all-time highs.
Yes,
is where you'll be. So
that's where I'll be looking. That's where I'm looking for. Is just new all-time highs.
Yeah, it's exciting. Again, per usual in crypto, seeing a lot of activity on chain, as you mentioned earlier in the show. Big inflows into some of the ETFs. We want to see that continue. So we'll keep an eye on all of this, but. Yeah, it still is and has been for some time a market in which you want to buy the dip. When that changes, we'll let you know. But, the trend is your friend, I suppose, as lame as it is to say. Stick with what's working here.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, that's going to do it for our show, Dan. As always, thanks for coming on. Thanks for doing double duty on the network, spreading the good crypto word.
Oh, yeah.
Today on the show. We will be back on Wednesday. But until then, I'm Ryan.
I'm Dan.
Peace.